What?
We're live now.
We're live? Oh, how lovely.
Do that again, would you?
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're clever.
This is in honor of your cats. In honor of your cats. Finish.
Didn't want to kill the lily there.
Hi there, boys and girls. Your Uncle Stevie here from Mighty Fine Guitars with a couple of very special guests today on the Friday Noontime webcast. Tony Marcus, Ray,
Yay.
and Paul Schmidt.
Yay.
And, maybe you could tell the people about each other. You could tell folks about Tony, and Tony could tell people. You don't have to brag on yourselves.
Okay. Tony's been in the witness protection program for about.
That's the witless protection.
I'll give you the best. Yeah, let's see. What I know about Tony is the stuff that I would tell somebody. What's Tony Marcus like? I would say deeper things rather than his professional stuff.
Right.
His generosity, his experience with this. He always lets me borrow guitars I can't afford, which is incredibly generous. He is a lovely player of all the styles he is engaged with, which is like older timey kind of stuff and jazzy stuff, and he's been around doing this for decades, very
Centuries,
well.
in fact.
Yeah, right. And he's like
That's
he's
true,
a
isn't it?
he's a wonderful fellow and a fine player.
Oh.
It's a fact. I know it's hard to hear compliments that are factual, but that's my experience at Tony Marcus.
And some of you
I'm
might
grateful to
have
know
purchased a guitar from this gentleman, from Tony, or heard him in one of his many, many incarnations in all different types of styles of music. In fact, the Cheap Suit Serenaders have a show coming up, don't
They do indeed on Friday, January 12th in Berkeley at the Freight and Salvage.
It's the annual show.
One only.
Well, who are they? Tell them who they are.
Lots of rehearsals going on for that show.
The normal number, yes. Just
That's
as many as always.
Usual. The Cheap Suit Serenaders formed originally by Art Crum and Terry Swigoff. And,
Actually, Terry wasn't in the
wasn't
original
he on
trio. It was Crum and Al Dodge and Robert Armstrong
Yeah.
for the first few years.
There you go.
And then Terry joined, and Bob Brosman was a member for years, and myself. I was the new guy for a long time, having joined in 1979.
Good heavens.
So when did they start? Like the Roosevelt administration? Or
Yeah,
what?
pretty much.
Jesus.
That's Teddy. No, that's right.
You know, Teddy, you. Back in the 70s, I had a radio show at Santa Clara University, and Mysterious Moe's from the Cheap Suit Serenaders album was my theme song.
Oh,
That's
cool.
That was where I started off every show, was with that. And Tony, have you met Paul?
I've met Paul. I've known Paul for a while now. Paul Schmidt. He's a noted author, raconteur, music teacher, an all-around good guy. And God, does he have good hair.
Enviable hair, don't you think?
Just decrying its loss in the front. But, anyway.
It's all right, that's what bangs are for. Well, today's little featurette here on the Friday Noontime webcast, Tony is a music star unto himself, and he's brought several guitars in here for consideration for hanging on the walls at Mighty Fine Guitars. I'm pleased as punch. Oh, speaking of which, that was an Alan Perlman guitar that Tony was playing there.
What a lovely thing it is.
For Alley Cat, wonderful. And Paul, you're playing a...
I think this is Tony said. This is all Tony's. This is a 1930 Martin
OM28.
28. Really lovely neck. It's got this. Let's do a couple of because we play different style stuff. I got a nice heavy old pick here, probably from the same vibe that somebody would have played when they played this, an old tortoiseshell guy. And it's got this great modern neck. This neck feels like something somebody to have custom done on an electric. Now it's really comfortable.
Tony was saying...
Yeah, Martin some unknown reason, both Martin and Gibson, right around the end of the 20s, beginning of the 30s, had some guy in their carving department who was making really modern feeling necks. And,
Right.
then after a couple of years, he got laid off or something, and they went
For
back to
making
making
modern necks.
Nothing but modernity.
I mean, he does this kind of. But you can also give it a.
Because the folks at Martin had the peculiar idea that these were going to be big band sort of guitars, which they're tremendously unsuited for.
Yes, that's right.
However, they're perfect for playing fingerstyle
Yeah,
solo guitar.
Which you couldn't hear in the old days, you know.
Oh, you wouldn't stand a chance against even one trumpet.
Being played.
Right. Even worse. Even worse.
They're also the first 14 fret Martin guitars made. Pretty much the first factory 14 fret flat top guitar.
And long scale and wider fingerboard. In 1930 was still that. Kind
Yeah,
of
the
old
wider
thing.
fingerboard had already been part of the
Yeah.
description, but yeah, the longer scale, the 12 fret triple O's also had the long scale. So when they went to the 14 fret, they kept it for a few years, and then pretty much simultaneous to where they changed the designation back to triple O from OM, they went to the shorter scale.
You see how the geekery flows in this place.
Doesn't it just?
Gets esoteric pretty quickly. But hang with us.
We're talking about half an inch.
That's right. That's all we're talking about.
And then this would have had the banjo guys, right?
Yeah, totally useless banjo tuners.
And this is
Yeah,
old
yeah.
cool
But they look
Brazilian.
so cool.
Oh, they look great, yeah.
Just lovely
Yeah, they're really
looking
pretty.
things.
Yeah, they kept the head looking so clean. It was just, and they're really comfy. It was effective like the old
Doing
Firebird
this
thing.
way instead of
Yeah, I like
instead
that.
of that
Well,
way.
these were
Right.
they were also the first solid headstocks that Martin had built. Before that, they were all slotted headstocks. So presumably the reason they used the banjo pegs was there weren't any others.
That'd be a good reason right there. Yeah. So 1930 or 1931.
This is 30, yeah.
30.
This is actually quite early in 1930.
And it has been refinished, so
Yeah.
it will live on. It's not.
When you guys want to do something? Who wants to play?
Play, play, play.
Let's do
Oh, people hear me play all the time. People hear you play all the time. Let me see. Do we have some questions or comments?
I think people are just stunned.
Are they stunned? Glenn.
What was I doing before? I know.
Cool.
That song was written right about when this guitar was.
I was going to ask if that's lovely when you do that. That's great.
It's neat. The melody thing jumps out, and then the bottom is that nice little velvety thing. The balance is really cool.
Yeah. Orchestra. That's for playing with an orchestra. Because you want that balanced sound when you're playing with a full orchestra.
The gentle velvety orchestra.
That's right. Yes. It's like that, you know?
Should we drag out more guitars?
Yeah.
What do you want to see? What do you want to see?
You know, you
Whatever-
got that one open right there. I
Okay.
was particularly interested in this one. While we're in the kind of acoustic, before we get into the archtop kind of guitars. And this one is...
I like this. This is
It's presumably from the 20s, because the gear's kind of dated to no later than the mid-20s. Made by the Larson brothers in Chicago. They're two Swedish brothers who emigrated to the States a little before the turn of the 20th century. And
yeah, it's cool.
built guitars under a number of names, never under the name Larson.
Yeah, right, huh?
But it's
Prairie State.
Prairie State, Mars, Stroll, Euphenon. They're all,
Euphenon, too.
all Larson Brothers.
Yeah. I'm a big Larson Brothers fan.
Well, also the Dyer harp guitars.
That's right. All these two guys. All these two Larson Brothers, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, question.
Why do you know fellas ask any
Adrian Legg covers. Nobody covers Adrian Legg.
Oh, actually.
He's an entity unto himself. And if you're not following him on Facebook, you should. He's got the most entertaining posts where Adrian talks to Adrian. Good morning, Adrian. Good morning. Well, what should we do today, Adrian? What are we today? I don't know. Let's see. I remember the gig last night was blah, blah, blah. Tune in Adrian Legg on Facebook if you're not aware. Funny, it's lovely.
Play his stuff. You not only need to be him, but you also need to have Keith banjo pegs on your guitars.
You do indeed.
Uh-huh.
And a pedal board. Oh, Adrian is really, really something. Sorry, Mike, but the answer is no, I'm afraid. At the moment, trying to summon something.
It's so pretty.
A cool bounce here.
Bass just
It's not a big
orchestral, really.
It's fun to play this on
Does this have a model number, Tony?
Probably does, but I have no idea what it is.
Right, yeah.
They made various grades of fanciness, I think, rather than actually having specific models. This would probably be something like a style 3 or a style 4. They went up to 8 or 9, I believe.
That's right. Oh, that's lovely, Paul.
Where's the D?
Right there.
The 12th fret and the dots are different. It's cool. It's great. This is really fun to play. It's got a bigger neck, but the tone on it is really. Isn't that pretty?
It's not exactly the typical Larson tone.
How's it different?
In my experience, anyway, has tended to be a very, very focused, kind of piercing sound.
It's clear and it's got the capacity to be strident, but to me it's sort of like a sort of subtler Martin-y thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't. You don't go, oh, it's a Martin. It's not. It's like this is cool. I think this is really cool.
Yeah, the stall replica that I have that was made by Alan Perlman is very precise. And just a little too hard, it just strays into those zones of nasal. But just back of that is favorite.
See, there's nothing nasal about this.
No, talk about sound.
Hey, Paul, if someone wants to learn how to do that, how do they get in touch with you?
BR549. Yeah, you go to my website, artofmusicschool.com.
The Art of Music School.
.com.
Artofmusicschool.com.
Yeah.
Oh, before
you.
you stash that one, Tony.
Yeah, you should play it. You play
Get
it.
off of this one.
Because this is more this is kind of your vibe, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. But you're right, wider somehow. Not
Yeah.
as,
Yeah, it's not
more
stingy.
diffuses too. It's so hard to talk about sound.
I think
There
it's
are
fun.
two words that describe sound: louder and softer. And everything else is analogy, metaphor, simile. It's just about everything else.
Yeah.
Hints of chocolate.
Yeah.
Do you know, funny you mentioned chocolate. Sitting right here on this bench
Uh-huh.
was a couple 4 years ago, shortly after I started here. And the fella he teaches next door here. He's a wonderful fella. He had been circling this one guitar, and he was playing all the rest in the shop just to make sure that's the one he wanted. But every time, sitting at my desk, that he played that one, my ears would perk up, and I'd say, that's the one, man, that's the one. So he came in just before closing one night with his wife, and I thought, oh, we're down to the final thing to get the, how does it sound to there? You're going to be listening to this, honey. What do you think? And I left him alone for a while, and I came back in. We had my gal Valerie and I had dinner with them a couple of nights before, and they're real foodies. So when I came back in, she was saying, oh, no, not that one. That one's too lemony. I like the chocolatey one better. When you mentioned chocolate.
I like that.
But it's not that same quickness that my stallish guitar has. Some of that same real quick off the top kind of feel.
but it doesn't have that young quickness. It's sprightly, but it's wiser.
Yes, it is. Yeah, good. You got to go this route. You got to talk about chocolate and wisdom.
That'll be my new album. Chocolate and wisdom.
And wisdom. That's right. Don't even look at it.
Don't play the album, just look at
That's
it.
it. In fact, don't even look at it.
I can't look at it.
La la la.
Wonderful guitar. Wow.
Yeah, that's cool.
You can learn a lot from
You could learn a lot from
Mowers,
this guitar. Really good.
I find that, don't you?
Come on through.
I find I get different ideas from different guitars.
Sure.
Don't you? I mean, I find like different instrumental go. I wouldn't have played that on that one, but on this one, it like gives me that idea, and that's that. You know, it's a funny experience to go. Wow, listen.
Oh, love it. Just wonderful. And this is one you're considering leaving here at
It is true.
Mighty Fine Guitars? How about that? Wow, folks. Well, Tony brought 6 instruments in, I believe, or 7, something like that?
5 or 6.
5 or 6? Great. We'll take a look at some of the rest here. Whichever one you like. Next
Pull out one of the archtops. Pull out the LL5.
This is lovely. Tony is perhaps, I certainly have heard him mostly play an archtop guitar myself. And there's one right there. Holy smokes. That's an L5.
This would be an Gibson L5 from the mid-30s.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wow.
Look at that.
That's a nice piece of maple right there.
So is the side. So is the side.
Ooh-wee. And this is pretty original condition?
Yeah, hasn't been altered at all.
It's
Really
not
thin.
nobody did anything with this one. These are cool because usually when you see these old guys with the open tailpiece before they have that, the stylized L5 thing, they don't ever look that clean. This is cool. Usually they're all
looks
like
good,
dark,
doesn't
dark,
it?
dark,
Yeah, they get
or they
along.
got their funny engraving. But this is
So one thing that has happened on this would have had very similar gears to this, but they would have been 6-to-1 ratio Grovers with peened on shafts, and they tend to get loose and they don't hold tuning. So these are replacements in the original style.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, that's better. They look the same though.
Yeah, they look exactly the same.
You bet. You bet. Except they work.
That's actually happened. I had on that old Super 400. I had that 34. Same thing. I had problems. They would get loose.
Yep.
But the engraving was so sexy. I didn't want to get rid of them. So,
There is a trick you can do on those to make them a little better.
somebody squeezed them. I took them to a
Yeah,
machine
exactly.
shop and a guy squeezed
Yeah.
them. And
You squeeze them?
yeah.
If you just
Right.
there's this
Oh,
collar that
let's-
goes around the worm gear.
Yeah.
If you press it down a little bit, then it tightens it up a little.
Yeah, it worked. I never had a problem played it, but boy, I haven't seen one this clean. And I think these ones with the unbound and the X brace and the open tail piece and still all this are really cool. It's a neat combination. They didn't make it that way that long.
So when the original Gibson L5s were 16-inch bodies, in 1934 they went to a 17-inch body, and at the same time they changed from parallel bracing to X bracing. And got a little fancier looking, but then a few years down the road they went back to the other style of bracing and bound the F-holes and had these giant monster truck tailpieces.
Sunday, get your tailpiece. Because I think that you can still make these sound pretty, but you can still spank them, you know. These are easier to record, I thought, too, though. I like this.
Right.
You want to play it?
Yeah, give me just a quick spin.
It really sounds different out here. Even just here. Deeper. You don't hear that when you're right behind it. It's true.
It's so different, isn't it?
Really
You know?
different. It's really different. Weird. I mean, that's an archtop thing, though. That's kind of their deal.
They're designed to
They sound
somewhere
cooler out
around
there.
here. They're supposed to sound.
That's where everything converges. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Studio guys, they never know how to record them. They always stick like a mic. And if you don't, they'll put it right here, and it can go like 8 feet that way.
Where everything meets up. Look at that. Oh, that's
It's just
lovely.
it's more balanced and pretty, and you know,
Yeah.
it just its voice is more what its voice is like out there.
And who listens to that? You know, with your ear.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah,
Just
I mean,
away
it's
from
not a.
the
Yeah.
thing. What's next? What's next?
What else you got?
I don't know.
There's
Oh.
this one, Crash. I didn't break it. Good for me. Let's see here. This is like Christmas morning for crying.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you even looked at that one.
Which one was that one?
L10.
Oh, that's the black one, right?
So yeah, when Gibson started making F-hole guitars in the 20s, the only model they offered for the first few years was the L5, which cost a whole bunch of money, $275. And
big money.
after the stock market crash in 1929, not a lot of people had $275 to spend on a guitar, so they figured they better come out with similar but less pricey versions. So for some reason known to Gibson alone, the L5 remained the top of the line, and the next one down was the L12, and then the L10, and then the L7. Who
It's
knows?
like their serial number system, isn't it?
I get it.
Same Byzantine.
So this is an L10, all black, classy all black finish. Obviously got played some. This would not have been on it originally. Would have been a strictly acoustic guitar.
And it's a different sound than the L5. It's like a richer Epiphony vibe.
Interesting, interesting.
But it's cool too because you got to remember when this stuff was being recorded and all that, they were using the ribbon mics.
Right.
So the strident tone would actually work better with the sort of cloudier ribbon vibe.
So even though this looks like a ribbon mic here,
It does.
it's not.
They know that. It is not. It's absolutely not.
It doesn't have that same rich voice that the L5 does, but it's got a nice and even and clean. Yeah, it's cool.
Here's a great Guitar Geek factoid. See the fancy inlays in the fingerboard there?
Those are great.
They're in rosewood, and then there's a little plastic box around each one.
Yeah.
Gibson being the company that it was, the banjo had been like the big instrument in the 20s, and then the guitar kind of took over, and they were left with all these banjo fingerboards. They had no idea what to do with. They said, here's a great idea. We'll cut them up and use the inlays in guitars.
Wow, really? That is a fun fact, right?
It's a good idea, and it works. I think it's effective. It's more delicate than the other stuff, and it kind of suits there's an elegance to it that's cool.
Interesting too, I'm sure, and I hope it shows up through this microphone and all through all the thousands of miles of wires. You see it passing through. And just even hearing two different guys play the same guitar, it's a different guitar. It really is a beauty of person and machine. You know, I notice that here in the shop all the time. The same guitar is hugely different in two sets of mix. Yes, Miss Valerie, do you have a question?
L5 or the
L5.
L10.
Yeah.
L10 is actually rarer because it was only in the production line for a few years. They did make an advanced, the bigger version of the L10, but only from about 1934 to 38 or something like that. And then it went the way of the dinosaurs.
Oh, I know what to do with it. Good heavens.
Should play it.
Actually, the ones that show up the most are L7s because they were considerably less money, but they still had the basic features of the archtop F-holes.
Same thing. It sounds completely. It's a different experience.
This one's got, again, words to describe sounds. It's got kind of a flutiness to it.
It has a little more
A
air.
roundier sound in the.
See, like there, when he hits those low notes, it's like.
You helped me figure that out.
Not much. You had it all. Yeah, I already had it all, man.
No, got some great advice for you. One of these days, I'm going to actually take that out and start playing it. It's almost there. 6 or 7 years later. Cool, L10. Man, oh man.
Yeah, it's great looking.
And so stylish, exactly. Just the visuals on these are so wonderful.
So you want rare? Here's rare.
What you got?
This is cool.
So before Gibson came out with F-hole archtop guitars, they were already making archtops, but they were round hole instruments. And the basic model was the L1. They made an L1, an L3, and L4. This particular guitar was made in the teens as an L1. In the mid-1930s, it got sent back to the Gibson factory, got an F-hole top, and a more modern-ish neck. It's probably the only one this ever happened to.
What is it then?
The only one I've ever seen in 40-some-odd years of looking at these things.
Man, how cool.
Go figure.
You do something.
Yeah, Tony, do something. Original strings?
Pretty close.
Yeah. You bet. Oh, lovely.
It's kind of finger friendly, which is
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of surprising.
What was that piece called, Tony?
play.
You bet. Oh, it's lovely size too. You know, so many folks come into the shop and they're looking for a guitar smaller than the dreadnoughts that they bought or had bought for them in college, so that they can sit on the couch while they're watching Netflix and sports and play a guitar. This is, oh man, what a little couch cuddler, a little sofa sweetheart. This would be.
Well, you can play this while you're driving down the freeway. Maybe not.
With your phone.
That's right. He does it all the time.
That one to a nice new set of strings.
It sounds really neat, though. I mean, it's obviously more diminutive than the other ones, but the tone is really pleasing.
That is super.
Yeah, and you
fun.
still have
Man.
bottom end. You know, you'd think it was so small it wouldn't have any depth, but it does.
So we've been going smaller and smaller.
What you got back there,
Time
Tommy?
to go the other way.
All right. This was patented July 19th, 1916. 1910. Crikey.
Yeah,
So,
this guy.
one of the things about Paul Schmidt here is he wrote the book. The man wrote the book
He literally wrote the book.
on D'Angelico and DeKisto.
Got it. And this is my reward. Now this is Tony's guitar. This is really cool. This is like a 62, 63 New Yorker, and I've been using it for a little while for Tony. He's finally going to get it back. Is this the one that's for sale? You're going to raffle this off. It's like $5,000 a piece, and you got to buy 6 tickets.
Yeah, something like that.
That's the one.
See, I think I like about these so much is they have that resonant, pearly, pear-shaped note stuff, but the incisiveness and individuated thing that archtops do. That's what I always loved about these and was drawn to them as a player back before they were big dough, you know.
Yeah, there was a period in the 70s when basically no one wanted a
No, you
guitar.
could buy. I remember talking to what was the guy? He helped me with the book. What was the guy? He was friend. God, I'm drawing on his name.
D.B.
Ray Ogerty. He was on the road with Skitch Henderson. And he said there wasn't anything to do during the day, you know, so they would go out into the pawn shops. He said you could buy them $90 because nobody wanted it.
Things have changed a little.
Yeah, a little bit.
This headstock has its own zip code, doesn't it?
Yeah, right.
much, yeah.
Now, there you think of what what did the '59 Cadillacs look like?
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
right.
this was the
Fins and plummets.
yeah, right. And yeah, it is large and it is but it's still
It's beautiful.
artful. Yeah,
It's
it's
not-
got its own.
It's not total proportion.
Yeah, don't try to. It's a different aesthetic, but it's still an artfully designed one. I always thought.
Said it's a counterweight to the 18-inch body.
Yeah, right.
You're doing something. It's just going to disappear. Fades off on the horizon.
But I even like to play like that, like I was doing before. Still get this deep thing, but even though they were made more, especially at this time, This one to me, I was telling Tony before when you were opening the stuff that I've played about in that last period from 60 to 64. I played about 4 or 5 of those, and there were only like 15, 18 made then. This one is like the most acoustic-y and richest. Because a lot of them, they weren't made to be acoustic guitars, and they tried to impede the feedback effect because all the guys were playing single lines with the Rhythm Chief, so German 1100s on them, and. But that was never what appealed. I don't play that style, So having the deep, pretty resonant, balanced thing is what I liked about them. Plus, I think the swoon factor of visual is kind of what
It's in there for sure.
Yeah,
This Sunburst is way more subtle than the average.
this is real unusual. Yeah,
Supposedly the original owner, when he ordered it, he said he wanted the Sunburst to look like a glass of bourbon.
Well,
that's
kind of
good.
got it. And his name, if you can see it, his name is right here.
Joel Frutkin.
Joel, he owes me $20. Where the hell is he?
Yeah, no. The neck is really, really comfy. It's not. Sometimes they're really skinny. This is like right in between. This is like It also does a fingerstyle, you think.
Tout your book, would you? Tell folks about your book, because you literally did write.
I don't.
a book
I
on
think
this
I took
guitarist.
it back because when it went out of, and I got to give that back to you because I gave
That's
that to
right.
you. Well, I came in and got it because it went out of print.
Oh, that's right.
And we're in the process of looking at the 3rd edition,
That's
but it
where
went
we
out of
got
print
that.
with the old publisher, and so all of a sudden the book started. Somebody had called me up to get them for a guitar show. Can we get a couple? We want to give them away. So Skip's like, oh, just go to Amazon. I don't, I
And
got
what it's
it.
called, of course.
Art Acquired of the Angels,
Acquired
and
of the
acquired
Angels.
because Diaquisto means acquired, to acquire, and D'Angelico means of the angels. Okay. So.
That worked out.
But
nicely.
yeah, I thought it was cool, and it's A, so it's the first in the cataloging thing.
Yeah.
So
Always
Absolutely
thinking.
acquired of the Angels.
so AAA's version. So it had gone out of print, and all of a sudden, so he goes, well, but they're like $200 on Amazon. I'm like, what? So I go, and it's because they're out of print now. There aren't any left. There aren't any new copies left. So I came and got, I better take that back because it was hanging out in your little
that's
library.
it.
But I'd written to Stevie, so I got to find that bring it back.
Have to sell it to somebody
I
named
got
Steve.
right. So anyway, the first edition came out in '91, and then the second edition came out after Jimmy died because the story was pretty well complete by then. It was done, and came out in '95.
Jimmy DeQuisto.
Yeah,
Yes.
98 came out. No, he died in '95. Came out in '98, and then it was in print for a quarter century, and then just went out this year. And we're in the process of trying to get a 3rd edition out that will also be an ebook. So it's a little more. The guys I'm talking to are more. They're hipper with that digital stuff. That's not my gift.
Right.
So just for those of you who aren't so deep into this whole lore,
Yes.
John D'Angelico started making guitars somewhere around 1930. He lived until 64, is
Yeah,
that
died in
correct?
'64.
And for the last 15 years or so of his life, DeQuisto was his apprentice.
Oh yeah.
And by the time this guitar was made, probably DeQuisto was at least as involved in its manufacture
Yeah.
as was D'Angelico.
Yep. Yeah, I forgot about that one.
How about this?
Sorry.
Check out this too.
Yeah, and then
This.
the D'Angelico D'Acquisto workshop was acquired by Paul Godelsky, who was a guitar maker that lost his life, and his family then had all that stuff, and they worked out a relationship with the National Music Museum in Vermilion, South Dakota, to have the original D'Angelico D'Acquisto workshop installed. So they've got, that came out, I don't know what year did it go. So they asked me to come, they asked me to do a book about him, and then the thing that was fun about it was we did all these cool shots at the museum of the guitars they have in the museum of D'Angelicos and D'Acquistos. And then there's this whole second half of it, which is all of all the drawings and the templates.
Nice.
So that for makers, it's kind of cool. So they want to go, well, what was he doing? And da-da-da, like that. So,
It's like a Michelangelo marginalia.
right.
It's all right there.
Yeah, that's only available, I think, through the museum. But the National Music Museum has that.
And here at Mighty Fine Guitars.
And here at Mighty.
One copy.
Well, I have some more. I think I have some more.
Yeah, okay.
I'll bring them when you bring you your copy of Choir.
Yes. Well, that turns out. That's all right.
But this is a great. The wood they were using all imported European maple, celluloid. This is preserved, just great. Tailpiece is great. This is a really cool guitar.
The tuners. I wonder if you could flash.
Well,
the
these were pretty well standard. The Grover Imperials, they were like the biggest, largest.
back there,
you know,
too. It's
Yeah,
massive. But
Those
again,
came out in '38, I think, originally.
Yeah.
they were putting them on all the
So yeah, you'd find them on Super 400s and some L5s.
Epiphone didn't put them on the Emperors, though, did they?
No,
they had their
they-
own little Epsilon thing.
Mhm.
Stromberg used them too, I think.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, you play something on.
Tony, play it.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Your turn.
Go ahead.
He's reading.
I'm a busy man.
Tony reading.
Aren't those cool? And they got all the ledgers. We did photocopies of that. Isn't that cool? See how rich that is out here? Look how rich that, right? See, that's great. I mean, he's sitting here. I mean, it's got that. It does all this stuff. I mean, it's like it's rich, it's deep, it's clear, it's separated,
lovely.
but it's blended.
Yeah.
It's really it's
Bourbony is what it is.
yeah, right. It's
Well-aged
it does
bourbon.
everything. The archtop is the last development of acoustic guitar evolution, and it was never explored a whole lot because it was so associated with electric guitar development at the same time.
Yeah.
But as an acoustic instrument, they do these amazing things. A really great one does these really amazing things.
True fact.
And because you guys do more of the finger styly solo thing, and I do more of an accompaniment singing deal. And I think these were great for that. Yeah, And classical stuff is great on these. See, it's got breadth.
I cut my fingernails off.
Yeah, I did that too.
See,
It suits you, Tony.
it is really cool harpy, though. You get that nice little... This old story. Remember,
I'll take it.
who's that one? Who's it? Joe
Talk to the
Puma.
owner.
In that movie, Joe Puma's talking, or he was New York jazz guy. They were in D'Angelico's one day. They had one of the guitars and he strung it up and he's playing it. And D'Angelico's beautiful, sounds just like a harp. And Puma goes, yeah, but it's supposed to sound like a guitar.
Can't win with those guys.
No, you
Can't
couldn't.
win.
No, you couldn't.
What else you have, Tony? What else?
That's kind of it, I
Is
think.
that it?
There's a newish archtop, but
Well, let's take a look at that.
Okay,
too. While
just
we're
for fun.
Here.
Yeah.
What the heck? And we'll tune in again, see if there's any.
This one's a lot less costly than the other ones.
very much so.
Same fella asked for the song Irish Girl. I assume it's.
Irish girl.
Don't think I know that.
Is that like Brown Eyed Girl? Or?
He was asking for this.
For the Adrian Lenny. Yeah.
Oh.
I wish I could oblige.
He was singing an Irish Girl.
Never know. Camera does strange things.
nickel strings on it.
Nice.
What do you like on an archtop, Tony? Do you like nickel or do you like phosphor?
For the acoustic sound, I'm more fond of phosphor bronze. So there's the D'Addario nickel bronze. Have you tried those?
I haven't tried it, no.
I have some at home. I haven't put them on an instrument yet.
Yeah.
Sounds like it might be a good compromise.
What's the idea? Obviously, have a little bit of both.
Split the difference, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Presumably would work better with magnetic pickups than the bronze strings.
Right.
But supposedly they have a good acoustic sound. Nickel strings, I mean, they don't sound bad acoustically, but
And if you want to get like on some of the some of the gypsy style guitars, you want that little. They enhance what that voice does.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice.
I need inlays on the fingerboard.
Yeah. Get some duct tape.
You get some old banjo parts we can.
Oh, I've got one right here. Yeah. I got one right here.
Yes,
It's nice. Those are
what's
nice
that
jump.
piece,
Those are
Tony?
nice jump.
nuage.
Nuage is
Le
yes.
Django.
Ah, very
Django.
nice. Look at that.
Yes, it's cool. Pretty wood too.
Reminiscent of, I never got this hit off it before, the Jackie Gleason theme song.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that kind of in the same ballpark? Yeah.
And it antedates that, so.
Yeah, how about that, right? And this is by a gentleman named Walsh.
Chris Walsh, yeah.
Chris Walsh.
We're still building guitars.
It's the strangest thing, I'm not known here for having or selling archtop guitars, and two went out in the space of 2 days.
Good figure.
Had a Rebecca and your fellow.
Yeah, Harshbarger.
Arschberger, right.
Now, the other guitars we showed with pickups on them had floating pickups. This one's actually mounted at the top, but it still has quite a lot of acoustic sound.
A lot. So 11/16. Pretty.
How about that?
It's unusual he didn't bind the pick guard to be aesthetically in keeping with all the other binding.
Write him a nasty letter.
Angels behaving, sending all my love for you.
does. It does. Even though the pickup is mounted on there, there's still a lot of acoustic
Well, it's a big body.
vibe off the top there. Plenty of room. Could put a couple more pickups on there. You still would kill them.
What do you run these? Should you run through this like a tube amp, or do you do the AR thing?
Mostly just AR.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. The top stuff jumps, clears.
Cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, some of these guitars, not sure which yet, will be available here, and the rest will be available through Tony. So be in touch. How can folks get in touch with you anyway? What's the
Well,
best way?
these are probably going to be.
They'll be.
They'll be here. But you
Right.
can also go to tonymarcus.com if you
There you
wish.
go. You got a .com, right? Sure. Very good. And is Leftover Dreams playing anywhere anytime soon?
We shall be, but I don't have the dates in my head.
Okay. Go
We've
to
got something
TonyMarcus.com.
coming up at the back room rather, in Berkeley, early in the new year.
Very good. Very good. All right.
Run the closing credits.
That's it. Yes. Yes. Well,
I'd like to
actually,
thank our sponsors.
who were Gibson, Walsh, and on and on and on. One more guitar I want the fellas to take a look at, just because it came in the door last night at 5 o'clock. I haven't really
Cool.
had a chance to mess with it too much, but it's totally cool. And give me 2
Oh,
seconds.
yeah, the
to
one we were playing
snatch it
before.
off the wall. Yeah, this one. Let's have you give that a spin.
What?
This is a gentleman named Rick Micheletti, who I recall was kind of a rock star at the last Healdsburg that I went to, and had a chance to play some guitars very briefly there. And this came in, and wow! I sit here doing my email, doing my stuff, and people walk in with fabulous guitars.
They pay you for that?
Eventually, sometimes.
Yeah.
Nice.
Definitely got a different sound, but a really intriguing sound.
I think so too. You bet.
Redwood.
Sinker redwood top, East Indian rosewood back and sides, but this rigid framework around the top. That's not just binding and purfling. That's a rigid
It's part of the design.
part of the design. And individual saddles. It's really different, but it's real cool. Drop and give me 20, Schmidt.
I like the bottom end, the clarity. It's cool. It's really
bet.
cool.
Nice. Did you write that?
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote that. It was a
When he was
1445.
Henry
You're right. Right. I didn't tell you about my Uncle Dory and the gray side of the family.
Painter.
Yeah.
2 coats, one afternoon.
But this has got that cool depth to it. It's funny, you go from the archtop thing to this, and all of a sudden you hear this resonant thing, but then the purity of the notes shift differently. It's a different kind of, it's the characters
Well,
different.
clearly you need at least one of each kind of guitar.
Thereby answering the question. How many guitars does anyone person need? Just one.
This almost looks like a more artful grammar. Remember the grammar headpieces? But this is cooler. And this is really great.
Very impressed.
Yeah.
Rick was saying when he dropped it off here, he said, I wish I could remember which Luther it was. It stopped off to say somebody from back east. He said, hard stuff. How are you doing with the hard stuff? That Rosetta's really difficult, and this is really hard to do. What are you doing? Following his muse is what he's doing.
So is this brand new off the workbench?
It is, yeah.
It's fun. I like these little individual six saddle thing. It's cool. This is comfy too, but it's aesthetically appealing. It's it gives the guitar a softer mood.
Yeah, you bet. And there's a big nerve bundle right in the inside of the elbow there. That can, a real sharp edge after a while can really.
It does, and that's the weirdest thing about the flat tops. So it's fun too. The other thing though, skinny arch tops, you just get, it doesn't so weird on your shoulder.
Yeah.
And we don't really have the trouble that a lot of guys do because we're all taller and longer, but
I have a problem with his narrow fingerboards because they have sausage fingers.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, thank you very much. Oh, yeah.
yeah, it really jumps.
Incumbent to do when you take a guitar from some other guitar player is to retune immediately.
Do you know what's strange? A guitar can sound perfectly in tune in one set of hands, and then you'll pick it up, and all of a sudden, sorry, pal, I'm not, no nasturtiums being considered, but...
My technique, of course, is to pick the string that's out of tune and tune all the others to that.
And why not?
Well, this thing that's different about this guitar than all these other guitars is this guitar doesn't know it's a guitar yet. It's too new. It doesn't know what it's supposed to do.
On the other hand, the wood in the top is probably older than the wood in any of the other guitars.
True fact.
What's that story again with that redwood? Is that from a certain...
I don't know that particular one. There was some logging that, some logs just ended up sinking.
Right. And they'd end up at kind of getting tumbled at the bottom of waterfalls and stuff. And the thought is that the water has kind of has mineralized the guitar, pulled out a lot of the oils, leached a lot of the oils, and replaced them with kind of mineral salts, little bits of minerals in there, which really stiffens it up. There's redwood and there's redwood. I've got redwood guitars in here, which is becoming more and more a popular top wood. There's redwood guitars that are very soft, really attenuated high end, and others that are really bright and snappy like this one. There's redwood and then there's redwood. Mm-hmm. None of which are like the redwood that your deck furniture is made of. That's not
really rare
stuff. Very rare.
Well, it's funny. So it pulls out the resin stuff, so it's sort of doing the same thing with a completely different methodology that like the whole torrified thing is.
Yeah. Interesting. That's part of the idea. Look at how bold that is.
It sounds really cool. It sounds really cool too.
It does sound really cool.
So you all come down now.
That's right. Listen to Uncle Tony there.
Bad credit, we don't care. We do finance.
I must be crazy.
We got to get one of those things with the air that goes like this.
The bendy guys.
Yeah.
Get a bendy guy.
I like those guys.
The way the overtones combine is really startling. It's got a lot of volume, but not at the top of the harmonic stack. It's not the real crisp, high, supersonic stack. It's considerably south of that. which in my ear translates into fluty kind of, you know, but not. It's got a lot of fundamental to it, but not that kind of nothing but fundamental the flute has.
See, I hear a glowier thing.
Glowier?
That's what I hear.
Oh, this is getting too hippy-dippy for me.
Hey, you're making fun of my hobby now.
Glowy, I like that.
Yeah, I like this guitar. Keep playing. Great tune.
Cool. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Good heavens, what a pleasure. Tony Marcus, Paul Schmidt, Steve Coyle,
Yeah.
Fine Guitars. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Valerie.
Thank you. Yes, Valerie, Mistress of the Machines. Shigor over there. Thank you very much for keeping us in tune and online. And do stop by the shop when you can. We've got a show here tomorrow night. If you're in the area, stop on by because a dear friend and former bandmate Chris Key is playing bass with the Michael Shea Trio. It's going to be the last show here for a while. And do stop by if you can at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, Saturday night here at Mighty Fine Guitars, 85 Lafayette Circle in Bucolic, Lafayette, California. Thanks so much, y'all. Down the road.